Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rule of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. By city ordinance, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any City Council member, including the mayor. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
To sit down. Welcome to Council meeting for Tuesday, June 19, 2018. Thank you for being here tonight. It's great to see you tonight. Can't hear you. All right. How's that? All right. Well, I said we have a great looking group, so that's you missed the most important part. Welcome. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the roll for tonight's meeting, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley. Here. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Great. Tonight I would like to introduce Briar Bollinger from Celebrate Community Church. He's going to lead us in our invocation tonight. And immediately after that, we will stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So please welcome Briar, and please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you so much for just the opportunity to be here tonight, to be in the same room with one another and be able to discuss different things when it pertains to our city, Sioux Falls. And Lord, I want to thank you so much for each and every person in this room, but more importantly, I just want to thank you for you and the way that you love us and the way that your love shines down upon us. And even as it looks like it's going to begin to sprinkle and maybe rain throughout the rest of tonight and tomorrow, what an awesome reminder of just your grace and how it constantly rains down upon us. And so, Lord, I just want to thank you for that. And, Lord, I just pray that you bless this conversation here tonight and that it is just in your will that everything is done. So, Lord, we lift you up, we praise you, and it's in your glorious name that we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Briar. Appreciate it. We will move on to the approval of our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I'd like to pull item water reclamation, remodeling, expansion of wastewater treatment facility, Woods, Fuller, Schultz, Smith for $24,000.
Okay.
I will move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second, Selberg.
Motion approved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Is there any further discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Starr.
In the future, more of a suggestion for some of these that we have trouble with. Could we get these so they're numbered, so we could refer to them by number? It'd be one of those things that I think would help the council in the times where we do pull something from the consent agenda.
Sure, the contracts, yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Now we will move to our regular agenda for tonight.
Move to approve Erickson.
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Staley.
I would like to make a motion to amend that regular agenda by moving item 105 immediately after item 106.
Okay.
If we could,
Second,
Councilor,
Starr.
if we could just get a main motion first to approve and then
thought we
the
had
amendment.
I'll second the main motion.
Okay. Motion by Erickson
Yes.
to approve the regular agenda, seconded by Kylie. And now we have a motion
You want me
by,
to say it again?
yeah, what were those two
Okay,
items?
here it is again. Motion to amend the regular agenda by moving item 105 immediately after item 106.
Okay.
Second, Star.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Staley to move item 105 immediately following 106, seconded by Councilor Starr.
And then do we have some discussion with that?
We can have discussion, absolutely.
Yes, okay. So the discussion is that we're talking about a compromise, and the compromise ordinance would come after the deferral on the move it to the end of the meeting ordinance. So what I'd like to do is, I think we should vote on the compromise first, and if that goes well, then I would say let's go and talk about the deferring the second one. To me, that would make sense.
Okay.
Question for the
Councilor Erickson, yes.
my question would be is, do you have a suggestion for item 117 then? Are you planning to move that since that's, or not 117, the new, I know Councilor Breck's 117. Councilor Brecky has a proposal as well, and so I'm
Right,
wondering
no,
if you're
I
wanting to move that.
wasn't planning to move that.
Okay. So there's a motion by Councilor Staley to move those items as stated, seconded by Councilor Starr.
And if Councilor Erickson wants to move that one up behind
Yep, I will.
that, I mean, I would be okay with that, to deal with all three of them at once.
Okay.
So we would have the compromise ordinance first, and then which I plan on supporting, and then we would move on to the one to defer move it to the end of the meeting ordinance. I know it's kind of confusing. Then the end of the meeting and then we would bring up the Councilor Brecky alternative end of meeting, beginning of the meeting ordinance. So if you're going to make it
I'd like to amend your motion then for both of those, so we have one motion to vote on, to move 117 after 105 then.
I think they have to be separate.
yeah, so if Councilor Erickson wants to do that, I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion by,
Get a motion. He's second.
motioned by Councilor Staley to move 105 after, or 106 after 105, seconded by Starr. We will first vote on that. So a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I have a friendly amendment to move 117 after 105.
Second, Staley?
Okay, motion by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Staley to move 117 after 105. Any discussion on that? If not, a vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right.
And then a vote on it.
Now we need a vote on, to approve the amended agenda accordingly. And I need a motion on, the motion has already been made. Okay. So I need just further discussion on that. Okay. If not, I need a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Starr?
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. All right. I think I made it through that. Now is time for public input. And so any members of the public that would like to speak, you can come forward and address the council body. One point I would like to make is that it is likely that item 105 is going to be deferred, and that's a second reading. So if that is deferred, there won't be public input on that. So if you'd like to speak to that item, now would be probably your best time to do that. So come forward and address the council. Mr. Colby, welcome, sir.
Bob Colby, Sioux Falls. This is something where you might exercise some of your authority. Every one of you is a driver, and every one of you is aware that when we parallel park, we have a prescribed area in which to park, length and width. But on Phillips Avenue, you have a width, you have a curb, and then we have the problem of what I call big-ass pickup trucks that park on Phillips Avenue. They hang out because they are longer than a vehicle, and if they have a ball hitch on there, that sticks out further. When you come down the street and you're driving, you're on the opposite side always, and you pull over as close to the center line as possible. If you have two of those BATs parked across from one another, that can create a problem, and I don't think it is something that is conducive to people wanting to be downtown and drive downtown. If you are parked downstream with the flow of the traffic and you're parked beside one of those and you back out, you have to be in the lane of traffic in order to see what's coming down that lane of traffic. I think that could be taken care of with a line painted on the street that if your vehicle hangs over, it's an automatic $25 fine. Now, you're not picking on any particular type of vehicle, but you're picking on those that don't park appropriately. I mean, I've seen vehicles, cars, that don't pull up to the curb and they hang out there too. And I think this would expedite traffic, especially when you want to back out and you have one of those pickup trucks beside you and you can't see what's going on. And I think that would be an easy remedy. It only affects herringbone parking. It does not affect any of the parallel parking. And I give you that to think about and ruminate, cogitate, and take care of if as you see the need. And the quote for the night comes from Harry Truman, who said, "Anybody who makes money off politics is a crook." Thank you.
Bob, thank you. I'm going to pass that on to Matt Nelson in public parking to see if that's something they've addressed before. So thank you. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm hanging in.
Okay.
Well, I'm James.
Name
anyway.
again, sir? Is it Henry? Can you state your name, please, for the
James.
James? I'm sorry, James.
That's okay. I was here last week too, okay, which was cool. But I watched the meeting on PBS after I got back to the motel. Okay, I lived in South Dakota for 59 years. West River, East River. Okay, I watched both cities grow. I watched both cities how they are, the activity and the crime and everything. Okay. And I know all the officers can only do so much, okay? They cannot be everywhere at once. I heard an individual, two people here, and it's just like today, I took my fiance to her appointment, and I'm certified as taking care of handicap, okay? And I've explained it to either Fifth Street Behavioral Health, which my counselor actually agrees with me, and her caseworker actually agrees with me, and most other people, even the officers know her, how to approach her. But when somebody comes up here and starts sitting there saying that all this is happening, all this is happening. It was like, I've lived in Sioux Falls off and on, okay? I've lived in the hood, okay? I've seen the activity. I lived next door to Sabrina White that was murdered, okay? I've lived in the lady that died in her bathtub on Garfield. I've seen, they can only do so much. I was there when they had that standoff on Western Avenue, which I got kicked out of the house until 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay? There's only so much everybody can do. So when I sit there and hear how some people come up here and say, we need this, you got to do this, you can only do so much. But when you start bad-mouthing people, okay, and it's wrong. You know, I mean, I know. I go through this every day. You know, and I know you guys got a lot to deal with. And I actually feel sorry because, and it's just like last week when I sit there and say, which I agree with all the people here that, like I said, the bus station closes at, what, 8:45, that's the last bus. Okay? Because I even give people rides. I don't have to. I do it because I don't want to see them walking. You know? I get so perturbed. Because I'm not going to swear, okay? Because I'm very respectful. And I have never ever seen my fiance swear up here. Never. Okay? Never. Okay? I care for everyone, not just one person or two people, but when I see people come up here and saying, the people in the hood are doing this, the people in the hood are doing that, we need more officers here, we need more officers here. Are you going to pay for them? They can only do so much. And I see them. When they get there, they will be there. That's just like I keep tabs on where I am. I keep an eye on the place, which the landlady asked me to. Yeah. And if I call the officers, yeah, it's going to be 5 to 10 minutes. But you got to realize where you are and where they are. They could be clear out on Cleveland Avenue. And you could be way down here on 12th Street in Kiwanis. You know, and it's just, it's monotonous. I really actually feel sorry for you guys, what you have to deal with. I don't like complaining, I don't like, but when somebody comes up here and starts bad-mouthing everybody, that's not right. And especially when it comes to my girl, no. And she has anxieties, okay? That's because of the past. Now see, it was like I said, I lived in Sioux Falls and Rapid. I lived up north and south. I've seen how both cities act.
James, thanks for your input, man. I really appreciate that.
You know, guys, have good luck.
Thanks for your support of our police.
Good evening. My name is Heather Pastor. I'm my fiance's fiance. You know, I had went to Sanford today because I had an appointment and I was trying to get them to possibly fix some of my hospital records. And I had brought my newest note that I'll try my best to my ability to read this because I have kind of learning abilities. My recent note that I just got from the Jake Law office, which states pretty much everything that's been going on. It states in this, I'm going to read what I can. It states in this note that Miss Pastor, Heather Pastor, babe, can you help me with this? All right. Well, anyway, and let me just shorten it up by saying this. In this note, it states about the voucher that we got taken from us because we couldn't get into place. It states about the landlord that assaulted me. It states about there is a protection order now, me against him. Okay, the state's attorney on my behalf. It states about my abilities, about how different people has treated me. And I gotta be real honest, I was watching the city meeting last week, and I'm not gonna say no names, but I seen somebody get up here and actually I was watching the TV, and the word that I seen was, oh, and one of the people that's been cursing when they come up here is Heather. Okay, you know what? If I said anything walking through the meeting that maybe somebody overheard, I do apologize, because I have a niece. I have two nieces of my own. I have an 11-year-old niece that's got HDD, and I have a 20-year-old niece that I don't see that hardly at all. I have anxieties, and I don't think that I have had so many situations in this state where people has used my abilities against me, where they slander me, where it doesn't take 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 people to come running up on me like they're going to come at me and do something to me to approach somebody. There is an appropriate way to approach somebody. I've been in situations where it's been misinterpreted. I've been in situations where I've had cops that don't know me. I'm talking about the cops that don't know me. They would show up after I got attacked by some person I didn't know and literally leave me, put bruises all over me, falsely arrest me, and then I had to go to court, and I went to my public defender and brought in evidence and proving that they falsely arrested me. They had nothing on me, and then I had to sit in my old apartment, or not my apartment, but motel that I live in because of this situation for 3 weeks trying to heal up, where I got bruises and marks all over me. And that's not the way you treat somebody with anxiety. I mean, I keep hearing people bab on here about gangs this and people doing prostitution. It's just like what my fiance said. We lived in the hood. We were on Kellerland when Sabrina White, I got interviewed when Sabrina White got murdered. I was on Kellerland when they did the story about where do people go in the wintertime when it's cold. I was on Kellerland when my landlord attacked me. We are decent people. And I hope you all have a blessed night. Thank you.
Heather, I would really encourage you to contact our Human Relations Commission if you haven't.
I've been working on that. I have been.
They'll be able to help you probably more than our council.
Can somebody give the information to my fiance? Because like I said, I have learning abilities.
Absolutely. We'll give you their information.
God bless everybody.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Scott Johnson. I come to watch a lot of these meetings on TV. This is the first time I've ever spoke in front of the mayor and the council, but I'm here to talk about this public input. And I know it's later in the agenda, but I'm not going to be able to be here at that late hour. I've watched a lot, right here. First off, on this issue and public input, I don't know why this is so urgent. I just don't understand it. How come it came on that Thursday and then by Tuesday they got to vote on it for a second reading, or the first reading, and then to go to the second? I just don't get it. Next thing I want to address is why I'm wasting my time in this after hearing the testimony of about 35 out of the 38 people that got up and wanted to leave it at the beginning as it is now. That just told me that the 4 counselors that voted this to have this push forward to a second reading didn't even care about what was said out of all these comments. They didn't care at all. We could have all just stayed home. That's the way I feel about it. And the same way tonight with all these people. And tonight they might have both sides of it on there, but it doesn't make any difference. Because everybody up here, all 90 of you, already know how you're going to vote on this thing. So this is a waste of all of our time, completely. Because nobody up here is going to change their vote, and there ain't nothing that anybody out here can say that's going to change the vote on any of you up here. Now, last week, Councilwoman Erickson was not here, so, but I can make an educated guess the way she would have voted if she would have been here.
Please speak to the body as a whole and not individual counselors, Scott. Thank you.
Okay, one of the counselors said wasn't here. Is that better? One of the counselors wasn't here, but I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, but I can almost guess how she would have voted on this. And if she would have voted the way that I want it, to leave it the way it is, then it would have been a tie vote, and then the mayor, of course, would have to change. And I don't know what his way would be on this situation. Some of the ridiculous reasons for moving it to the back is because of the decorum. If people get out of hand, what you do, the chair just gavels them and tells them, to leave if they don't. And then there was some stuff brought up by a counselor well, you know, this freedom of speech business and stuff like that, and that's bogus. Freedom of speech is challenged every day. You go to the court. If you go to court and you start cussing and swearing in front of the judge, he's going to gavel you, and he's going to have you either contempt of court, he can fine you, put you in jail. If you scream fire in a theater, for instance, when there's not a fire or stuff like that, you can go to jail for that. So there's always things like that going on. You know, where they say, one of the counselors said, yeah, it's just with that First Amendment, you know, freedom of speech, just like nothing can be done with it. Well, then one of the other counselors said that's not an issue at all. Another counselor said last week that a lot of people get up there and they do their speaking and then they go home and don't stay and listen to the rest of whatever happens there. Well, they might have had their reasons, or they don't want to have to sit through liquor licenses, rezoning, or any of that kind of stuff unless it affects them, you see. Well, I'm going to be going home right after I'm talking right now, and not because I'm showing disrespect and all that, because I can go home and watch this. I'm only 10 minutes from home, and I can go and watch this on TV where I can hear everything. Last week, I was out here in the audience, and some of the speakers got up there, and they speak so low that I couldn't hear them. And there was one gentleman, I couldn't hear a single word, and I was looking around to other people. Do you hear what he's saying? And they said, don't hear a thing. You know. Well, then I went home, and fortunately for all of us, we have reruns of this show. So I went and watched all the reruns until that guy came up again, so I was able to hear what him and a few others that I didn't get to hear got to say. So in my last, 20 seconds here, well, that's about all I got to say. So I just want to thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I think you should vote the way this thing should be voted on. This is ridiculous, especially at that late hour. It's on Thursday, then you got to vote on 5 days later. I never heard of such a thing, you know. Thank you.
Scott, thank you. Scott, good evening.
Yeah, Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. I'm going to have Jim put up something on the, and if you could give, there's copies of it for the council and the mayor, if you want to hand those out. But here, use this one for the record, and then give those to the council. Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. I'll just repeat what Scott Johnson said. Yeah, I'm not going to waste my time talking about public input. We all know how that's going to go. So I decided to talk about city business like I do every time I come up here. And in fact, I went and I checked the minutes of the past year since I was the winning 26 times I spoke in the past year. And you know what? Every single time I talked about city business. That's what public input is here for. I didn't come up here and ask for handouts. I didn't come up here and complain about the cops. I came up here and talked about city business. That's what I'm going to talk about again tonight. We just had a salary review of all the lower end people, I shouldn't say lower end people, but unions and collective bargaining people, but we didn't do a study of the director pay. I've often wondered why don't we do a study of the director pay? I've felt that Sioux Falls directors are getting paid like if they work for a private corporation. Well, the city's not a private corporation. We are a nonprofit that works to provide services to people. As you will see, I couldn't get any data on Fargo. I wanted to have Fargo on there, but I couldn't get data because they're the closest to Sioux Falls in population. Out of the 4 cities up there, we're the lowest in population. Omaha's number 1, Des Moines is number 2. Lincoln's number 2, Des Moines, Des Moines is number 2, Lincoln's number 3, and then we're number 4. Out of 8 of the positions, City of Sioux Falls pays the most. And some of those positions pay a lot higher than the other cities. And you will see the population differences and the different numbers up there at the top of number of employees. Now, I wasn't able to get this, the sources were hard to get because I had to get them from newspapers. I couldn't get any of the pay from the city websites, and Fargo had nothing. I couldn't find anything. But I really believe that the city needs to do a study of director pay. a real study of director pay. If we're going to do a study about the union employees, we need to do a study about the director pay. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the finance director that just retired got $16,000 in raises in the past 2 years. Basically spiked his salary, so when he went out to retire, it helps his pension. I don't think a lot of people know that. That's not fair, that's not right, and obviously this administration's new, you had no control of that, but this isn't another reason why this needs to be seriously looked at. I mean, there's some pay up there. I mean, Omaha pays, you know, they're the biggest city up there. They're three times the size of Sioux Falls, and their HR director makes only a couple $1,000s more a year than ours. I mean, that's an example right there. But you can take a look at that. You can keep those copies. Then I want to talk about something else. Let's talk about open government here a little bit tonight. I was going to file open meetings violations, but I decided not to. I decided that you have a new administration. I want to give you an opportunity to address this, but it's been happening a lot. We've been catching, one of the major things is we'll go to meetings, board meetings, and they'll start them early. You can't do that. The meeting is posted to start at 4 o'clock, you must start at 4 o'clock. We all have cell phones, they're all under satellite. That has the correct time on there. All they do need to do is say when it says 4 o'clock, then you start your meeting. I mean, there's been meetings that I know that Bruce has gone to where they're well into the meeting by the time he walks in at 4 o'clock. That's a no-no. That's an open meeting violation. This last week, 2 open meeting violations basically happened on the same day. The agenda for the Board of Preservation was never posted on the city website. By state law, it needs to be posted. Diane DeCoyer did realize she messed up. She did admit it. But also in that meeting, it wasn't posted online, and then it started early. So we're talking about these meetings start. They can't start early. They have to start on the time or after. Same day, charter revision meeting. I was actually going to attend it, but it already had happened. They posted the agenda that it was going to start at 4 o'clock. They decided in the middle of the day on Wednesday that they were going to change it to 3. I go watch try to come to the meeting at 4. I was going to watch it on my phone until I got here. It's already over with. So I watched the replay. The chair of the meeting says, "Oh, I'm glad everyone could show up early. Thank you." You can't do that. If you post a meeting starting at 4 o'clock, it has to start at 4 o'clock, not an hour early. So I just want you to be aware that there's these things going on. They need to be nipped in the butt, because I'm going to tell you, the next time it happens, I'm going to file an open meeting violations, and every single time it happens, I'm going to file another one, and another one, and another one, until you're buried in them.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Hopkins, and I live in South Central Sioux Falls. One quick word on the agenda thing. I think it should be done at the beginning of the meeting, simply because all of you are here because you chose to be here and you put yourself in the position to be here. We're here and we have families and commitments just like you do, and our days start just as early as yours. But when you've got a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old that gets you up, you have to be there. And I don't know your personal agendas, but to deal with issues early in the meeting would be our benefit, because you chose to be here and sit in those seats. You should allow that time to continue. The main thing I'm here for is I live on 44th Street and Hawthorne Avenue in South Minneapolis. And for the last 5 years, we keep hearing about 49th Street going through from Minnesota to Western Avenue. And since in that time period, Costco has come in, there has been a large multifamily complex in there. Many businesses have come in, and we finally got Heath to give us signs on the streets that say no trucks. So we're not getting as many big semis, but the semis come through on 45th to Western, from 44th over to West and over to Grange, to get to Costco, to get to Fairway, to get to Shopko, to avoid 41st and Western, because it's a tight corner, they can't make it. But we are a small residential community in the middle of a large commercial area, and we were there first. And there are families, and there are elderly, and there are children who ride bikes in that neighborhood, who walk in that neighborhood, who deal with this heavy, heavy traffic. I understand the section of 49th from Minnesota to Grange is tied into the interstate redo. But the section from Grange to Western could be completed that would alleviate a lot of that traffic through the residential area by bringing it from Western over to West and to Grange, that would alleviate it in the residential area. And I had another thought and I lost it. There are no parks or areas for the kids in that neighborhood to play, because in order to get to a public park, they have to cross 41st and Western, or 41st and West and Grange to get to the two city parks. There's a small open area at the south end of Hawthorne on 49th that is an overflow for flooding, that has a flat area that if you could even just put up a swing set or a playground thing to help get the kids off the street to keep them safe. And that's about all I have to say.
Deborah, thank you.
Thank you.
My first home in Sioux Falls was on 46 and Hawthorne, so I know exactly where you're at. And I'd love if you would leave your email or your phone number so we can follow up with you on the 49th Street plans.
And Heath has been helpful.
Okay,
he has
great.
put in 25-mile-an-hour speed limits on Hawthorne. He has put the no trucks through. But I'm sorry, the drivers don't pay attention to a speed limit. What we need on Hawthorne is not speed bumps. We need speed dips that would drain into the gutters, and it would slow them down.
I'd love to give you an update on the 49th Street timeline. So if you would leave your information, I'll be
Absolutely.
sure someone from the city follows up with you.
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
and your
Thank
service.
You. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members.
Christopher, how are you, man?
First, thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to speak to each and every one of you. I really do value your servant leadership. Mayor Tenhanken, congratulations to you on your new win. Great to see that for the community. The purpose of my attendance this evening is I'm going to cover 4 bullet points. I'm going to go through 3 of them quickly because my hope is that I can communicate on those topics in forward coming weeks. One, I wanted to bring attention to the council on 6th and Phillips, particularly heading east and west. The traffic volume is increasing on a very large scale in comparison to what I've seen throughout my walks throughout downtown. And drivers just really aren't paying attention. They're not paying attention. They're just going to think the street's a little wider there than it is maybe on certain parts of Phillips. And so just a talking point. Number 2, I want to take this opportunity actually to talk to Mayor Paul Tenhanken about the Sister Cities program that Sioux Falls has had with Potsdam, Germany for a large number of years. I'm not sure how many of you folks are involved in that. Long story short, I have been for many years, and I know the role of the mayor has been a really important part of keeping that establishment strong. And so if you have the opportunity to speak with Lord Mayor John Jacobs, he's a really, really great guy. And I think that's beneficial for Sioux Falls because I've been to Potsdam many times, and they really do a great job in terms of their public transport, and I think we can learn from them, and I think that's a benefit to our city. I think we can learn mutually about tourism from their community and keep that as a part of what goes on in Sioux Falls. I mean, Levitt Park is a Sister City sponsored park, and also with the Sister Cities program and you being involved with it, I've seen multiple educators from our community sent there and their professors sent here, and it's been wonderful for our students at Augustana, O'Gorman, Lincoln, and Washington. So I do hope in this transition with new leadership that could be something to just know that our community has high value in. And in that, talking point number 3, I know I'm definitely going to come off a bit strange when I say this, but I think as a city council, we should talk about a recycling campaign in Sioux Falls. I think downtown Sioux Falls is kind of the leader of all that goes on in the city. And I think we need to make it cool. Living and working downtown, I eat at almost every restaurant that we have downtown. And there are some businesses that have biodegradable doggy bags that you can take with you, and that's great, but there are a lot of them that use really heavy plastic. And if you go to certain buildings downtown, you can look side by side, waste and recycling, and the waste will be just overflowing with plastics and recyclables, and the recycle bin will be almost empty. And I think it's because people don't understand, and I think we need to find a way to make it cool. And I actually regress back to the Sister Cities program, because Germany leads the world in waste management and recycling, and I think there can be a lot that can be learned there that we can benefit. And if we can make that cool, I don't think a law necessarily needs to be put in place, because I think a lot of it is just secondhand in mind. Lastly, primarily the reason I'm here, and I know some other folks spoke on it, it's public input. I know I might be beating a dead horse, but I really do want to thank each of you for being servant leaders, and that is a part of being a council member. And so in learning who proposed the bill and who was voted on what, I actually had the opportunity to study folks that I have an opposing view with, and I found great admiration in learning that one of those folks is a director for the motorcycle rider education program. I was run over by a van when I was 23 and had to learn how to walk again. And so I find that very admirable. He's a teacher. I have a family full of teachers. One of the other gentlemen I learned is an executive director for the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I'm a big brother. It's a life-changing environment. And I also volunteer at the American Cancer Society. And so in that, I've learned a lot about each and every one of you, and I would just implore you to know that when you do hear public input, I know that I'm a servant leader, at least I try in the capacity that I can be. I hope someday I can be in the capacity that you folks are. And I think as servant leaders, I think it's mindful that when we listen to folks first, when we put them forward, we're helping wash their feet as leaders. And that's how we remain great servant leaders. It's how we lead from the front, not from behind. And so I close in that today, and I thank you for hearing me. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for the time.
Chris, well spoken as always, man. Thanks for those ideas. Good evening, Tim.
Tim Stanga. I went up to Pier 9 years in a row. Got to know a lot of senators, representatives, was able to either sit at their house and talk to them, or being able to go up to Pier and talk to them. 9 years I did that on my own, didn't get paid to do it. I lobbied for children. Every meeting that they had up there, me and about 3 guys never missed one meeting. They knew us by name up there because of one reason. We weren't going to be quiet on the issue. Every meeting we went to, there's times when we didn't have respect, but at the end we did have respect because they realized what we were there for. We had our opinions. Sometimes they didn't like it, but everybody decided that we had to make a decision. Yes, it did get taken care of a few years ago, but at their meetings, we were heard at the beginning. Every single meeting. It wasn't limited to 5 minutes. You could talk 10, 15. But they never had a problem with it. I belonged to a union for 14 years. One thing I realized about a union is it's apples and oranges. You can't compare a union to city council meetings because one's city government, one's private. So you can't put a union in with a city. Totally different. What's going to happen tonight, the sad part about it is a lot of people in Sioux Falls, they pretty much know who's going to vote which way and who's not going to vote the right way. It's so obvious it isn't even funny. But when we come up and we say something against you guys take it personal. But when you guys get up and you say stuff about the public, we got to sit back and take it. I sit and watch it every week. Last week, I brought it up that the city council fights among each other, and the mayor had to stop it. It didn't even get 10, 15 minutes after I got done saying it. The mayor had to stop it because the fighting within. Government is not going to change until the city council changes. I know that the mayor is going to put his foot down. Because if you guys can't get along, what do you expect us to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Cheryl Rath. Over the course of many years, I have spent countless hours attending city meetings, city council, park board, Board of Historic Preservation, and so on. You will not see me come to this podium very often, but tonight I bring you a concern about the city's lack of compliance with one of our state's most important laws, South Dakota's open meetings laws. Last week, I wanted to attend the June meeting of the Board of Historic Preservation. On Wednesday, the day of the meeting, I checked siouxfalls.org. When I saw there was no June agenda posted, I emailed the mayor's office. Today, 6 days later, I am still waiting for a response. That day, I called the planning department. They confirmed there would be a meeting. I informed them that the information was not on the city's website. According to South Dakota's open meetings law, how are the public and media notified when public business is being discussed? South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-1.1 requires that all public bodies prominently post a notice and copy of the proposed agenda at the public body's principal office. At a minimum, the proposed agenda must include the date, time, and location of the meeting and must be visible, readable, and accessible to the public for 24 continuous hours immediately preceding the meeting. Also, if the public body has its own website, the notice must be posted on the public body's website upon dissemination of the notice. The city failed to give 24 hours notice on the city's website of the agenda for the June 2018 Board of Historic Preservation meeting. This is a violation of South Dakota's open meeting law. The day after the meeting, the June meeting information finally showed up on siouxfalls.org. I attended the meeting. South Dakota's open meetings law requires that one paper copy of all supporting documents be provided to the public. There were 4 items on the agenda. There were no supporting documents provided, hence a second violation. This kind of lax attitude is not acceptable. I encourage you to do a refresher training on South Dakota's open meetings law with all city employees. Thank you for your time.
Cheryl, thank you, and know that since this is the second time we've heard this tonight, I am going to look into this, and
okay, thank
so
you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Fleming. My family has lived in Sioux Falls since 1982. I have been involved in a couple of the petition drives. I've attended many city council meetings and have become somewhat familiar with the role of the city council. The latest issue before the council is moving the time that the citizens may openly speak to the council to the end of the council meeting rather than at the beginning as it has been. Last week, many people came forward to share their opinions on this. The majority was not in favor of the change. They spoke sincerely and asked that it not be changed. You listened, but I don't think you really heard them, because when it came time to vote, 4 of you voted to move the open forum to the end. After just having heard citizens ask that it not be moved, to me it showed disrespect and dismissiveness. The people that elected you to represent them received the message, "We will do what we want, not what you want." How does moving the citizens' time to speak at the end of the meeting benefiting these citizens? It doesn't. Also, this change would be, in order to be fair, would have to include any public group acknowledgments awards, or presentations that are now at the beginning of the meeting until the end. Those people, sometimes including children, would also have to wait however long it takes for public input to be allowed. I believe there is a lack of respect for one another among the counselors. Until this is resolved, it will continue to be non-productive, and the citizens will continue to be pushed aside. Why can't you listen to the citizens and vote accordingly? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. My name's Diane Olson, and I wrote you guys an email
I got it.
today.
Thank you.
So, but I did want to share some of that email here in the public forum, if you don't mind. And then I have another topic as well. When we talk about our government, the word "our" means we the people, which is all of us, all of you, all of us. Our government is a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not for public officials, not for you individually, not for special interest groups, but it's for everyone. Moving the people's input to the end of the council meeting is effectively, it takes away the people's voice. Very few people will want to wait until the end, like people have mentioned. They've got family obligations, they've got other things that they need to get to. Nobody will remain to hear them. I wouldn't remain that long to hear them, and I like to hear them. I like to listen to the public input too. And those of you who remain here to hear them will probably at that point be tired. You'll lean back in your chair and you'll have a little cat nap, a little snooze. And even you won't hear them because you're all going to be tired and you all want to go home, right? So it's a signal to we the people that our elected government officials are completely disregarding and shutting down our input and that you don't care. Instead of honoring the input of the people that you're here to represent, the public input is the whole reason you're here, right? Why would you not want to have that up front and hear it and listen to it and act on those things? This is how you keep your thumb on the pulse of the community, through this kind of input. I have a better suggestion that in order to solve the problem for those 4 counselors or however many it is, I would like to suggest that when there's public input and through the majority of the meeting, those counselors go out in the hall, and then they won't have to be bothered to hear the public input. The rest of us can hear it and acknowledge it and honor it and act on it, and then we'll allow those counselors to come back in for the final 30 minutes before the meeting adjourns. That should solve the problem for everyone. Now, I do have another suggestion. If we move forward with some changes to public input, I prefer the one that keeps some public input up front. I would like to change that from a half an hour to an hour and from 3 minutes to 4 minutes, and I would like to make it temporary, so it has like a 6-month or a maximum of a year, at which time we revert back to this kind of a public forum. If there's rowdiness, that will help knock that out a little bit, and then we can come back and just be a respectful interchange of ideas. So please consider that. The other topic I wanted to mention today is the city, if I have time, the city inspector's office. I moved here 2 years ago, 2016, and there's been 3 major incidents where city inspectors have failed and bad things have happened. One is obviously the Monster House, and I think the city is being sued now, right? What they did not conform to the permits they were issued, and the city inspectors didn't take any action on that. Now, maybe there's a policy that needs to change. Maybe there's training that needs to happen. I don't know. The other one more is the Copper Lounge collapse. And the third one is close to my home. It's a couple doors away from me on my block where my house is. And that was between 6th and between North Spring and North Duluth on 7th Street, that big retaining wall collapsed. And again, that was something where all the neighbors were contacting the city. We've got email chains. And the city kept telling us, oh, we've got everything under control, everything's good. We requested a structural engineer to come look, and I know at least one did, like June of last year. The permit was closed on November 15th, I think it was, and the wall collapsed in February, sometime last February. And I think...
Diane, thank you. That's
Yeah.
5 minutes. I appreciate your input. Thanks for being here. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening again.
Yeah.
My name is Nancy Tapkin. I was compelled to return.
Thank you.
I posed the question last week, who benefits from moving public comment to the end of the meeting? I thought I knew the answer, but it became a little clearer after last Monday. Councillor Selberg, and I believe, I could be wrong, Councillor Neitzert, said last week in support of moving public comment, if it's important, they'll come. If it's important, they'll come. That's a pretty arrogant statement, in my opinion. It makes a lot of assumptions. But remember it. 25-ish people took the time last week to come and speak in support of keeping public comment at the beginning because it was important to them. Not a single liquor license applicant, rezoning applicant, developer, or other business representative spoke in support of moving that public comment. By Councillor Selberg's own definition, it must not have been important to them. Yet half of this council voted against the 25-plus people who came and voted for the 0 people who didn't. That's a disgrace. So who benefits is clear. Business benefits. I'm not anti-business, not at all. But being here is an inherent cost of doing business. This is my free time. And by free time, I mean free. No one is paying me to be here. Make no mistake, moving public comment to the end will, for all intents and purposes, kill public comment. No one will show up. The few that do, well, the council will be the only ones left to hear them. And that's not really the intention of public comment. Finally, for every one business owner, there are thousands of customers. This room last week was full of customers. The room this week is full of customers. Moving public comment will benefit the few at the expense of the many. 3 minutes, 15 people, 45 minutes max. Leave it at the beginning, please. Thank you.
Nancy, thank you for being here again. Bruce, good evening.
Good evening. Bruce Danielson. I was debating a couple hours ago if I even wanted to come up here and talk tonight because I know there's foregone conclusion on a lot of what is going to be decided on the public input discussion. As I've discussed with a couple of individuals just before the meeting that are sitting in front of me, I said this is a discussion that doesn't even need to be. I was asked by the mayor on the day of his installation to give him the time and the respect to try and get his feet on the ground and get his administration going. And I said I'd do that. And I said I would work with other people that I know that would give you the time to do this. And that's important to us because we're all in this together. It isn't just business. It isn't just the activists. It isn't anybody. It's like Audrey who called me just before the meeting and asked me to come up and talk, and that's why I'm here. Because she wanted to make sure that if she can come to the meetings, and she comes to the meetings, or if she wants to be at home, she can't be up transportation-wise, everything else about being here late, it wouldn't happen. The people of Sioux Falls want to be part of this body. So we had a working session just a couple weeks ago. And I sat in here and I heard people say, well, we're not going to talk about public input at the 7 o'clock. And then this comes out on Thursday. I find that incredibly disrespectful for everybody in this room and especially to these people out here. That is an important word in this whole process, respect. I find everything that has gone on here very disrespectful to not only the mayor and his trying to start a new administration. We have 2 new members of this body that have been disrespected greatly in several things that I have noticed. I have seen people not working together as they should have been working together. And that really bothers me, that we have to have these factions, and we have to have smirking, and we have to have these games that are played. I'll move on to something else, because I was also just watching it tonight. 2 people came up here and used public input the way that it's a dream that they came here and they expressed a problem. And immediately I saw directors and I saw people going over, getting addresses, starting to get the information, getting it done. That's why people come here. They want action. And I have enjoyed watching that with some of the other directors through the years. Boom, they're right there. We have some other directors, they run from the room as soon as something is said because they don't want to deal with it. And those people need to have an understanding of what customer service is, because we're not only your employers, but we're your customers too. I was at the open meeting last week of the Board of Historic Preservation. I actually took a video. I record all these meetings, and I have the video right when it flipped to 4 o'clock, and they were already well into the agenda. I just had a conversation with Director Cooper, and I sent a list of things that I saw wrong in that meeting. I now understand why the big yellow house became a problem. If all Board of Historic Preservation meetings are anything close to that, I understand why there's been problems. So I want to thank those who actually do talk to us and have talked to me, like just before the meeting and in the last few days. I'm tired of having my phone blocked from different people's, or they never somehow can never get my phone calls that I try and make, or they refuse to answer my emails. I'd really like to be in contact with you because we don't all want to tear this place apart. We want to make it work, and we're wishing you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate that. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Rich McCorris, Bramer Drive in Sioux Falls. I'm a pastor here in town, nonprofit leader, and a volunteer at the Sioux Empire Law Enforcement Chaplain Program. I don't share that tonight to get any special favor. I share that because I believe I bring a unique perspective this evening. I'm here to ask 3 things of you this evening. First, I'm here, I feel like I might get shot in the back tonight because I'm actually in favor of moving the public input to the back of the meeting. I believe, I've done a lot of research over the last week, St. Paul, Mankato, Rochester, Bellevue, Nebraska, you can just search all over. Public input is all over the map. Sometimes it's at the beginning, sometimes it's at the end. But I'd like to share 3 things with you quickly. First, this is not a ramrod project. Councilor Selberg, thank you for bringing this forward. Councilor Staley, thank you for rounding up and gathering the troops to give input. We had a first reading. We have a second reading this evening. We've had a lot of public input. The government process is working. What a concept. I so appreciated last week, right before everybody voted, everybody gave their reasons for why they were voting. They could have came in here and sat and said nothing and just voted head on. So I appreciate that perspective. Secondly, this is not a constitutional crisis. Whether we move public input to the back, the middle, or the front, this is not edging on someone's freedom of speech. Again, go around the country, the meetings are all over the place. Just want to remind us, the principle is free speech, but there's a variety of processes to get there, and we should be respectful that when we're on a different idea of a process, that's not breaking a principle. And sometimes I think we're yelling about the process like it's a principle, but we have to remember there's a difference between process and principle. Thirdly, this isn't about public input. Let's deal with the elephant in the room. This is about a transparent and responsive government. Listening to public input last week, the example was given of someone who came and explained that their neighbor had 24 chickens in their backyard. Thankfully, the next day, Mark Cotter got a hold of him, and there was action on it. The city council should not be responding the morning after about 24 chickens. The city council should be asking the question, why does someone need to come to city council to get action when there's 24 chickens in someone else's backyard? The issue is when we have transparency and responsiveness in government, that's the issue. We fix that, a lot of this public input problem is going to go away. So this evening, I'm asking three things of you. One, I'm asking this, and Mayor, you can prepare to gavel me because I am going to curse. I'm asking you to compromise. I'm asking that there would be a unanimous vote this evening, a unanimous vote to remove moving the public input to the back. Secondly, I'm asking that there be a unanimous vote for the compromise to leave public input at the beginning. Why? Because this city needs unity in order to tackle big problems. A divided council can clear streets, a divided council can fix potholes, but a divided council cannot fix our drug problem. A divided council cannot raise people that are in poverty out of poverty. We need 75 to 80 to 90 to 100% pushing in the exact same direction. And so this evening, I believe we should extend grace to one another. Has there been some mistakes? Yes. But what if we said, you know what? Let's overlook those mistakes. Let's compromise and unite around this so that we can move forward and tackle bigger issues. If the transparency and the responsiveness does not get fixed in the Tenhaken administration, I'll tell you right now, full disclosure, I am a major advocate and proponent of Mayor Tenhaken and Chief of Staff Beck. I believe the city is blessed. I will be the first at their door, the first in their email inbox, the first on their cell phone, if the transparency and the responsiveness does not change. Let's deal with the root issue, though, and not fight about this. Let us compromise. I will close with this in my last 45 seconds. This is not about the rich versus the poor. This is not about the white versus the black. It's being brought up that this is going to benefit the rich developer or the ordinary citizen. Absolutely not. Tonight we should say to the rich developer, thank you for investing $40 million in our community, because their phone is ringing off the hook by other cities that want that $40 million. Tonight we should say, hey, thank you, SouthDakota.com, for the way that you engage in our community. I don't always agree, but thank you for your time. We should say thank you to both parties and seek to bring both parties together. Every Thursday night at 10:30, I walk Pettigrew Heights, trying to find people, meet them, and see what I can do. About 5 weeks ago, I posted a picture on Facebook of a broken door. The next morning, I had 5 phone calls. Of those 5 phone calls, 2 were rich developers, 3 were ordinary citizens. Who was there with me on Friday night fixing the door? A rich developer. I would ask that tonight we would compromise, and that tonight we would unite as rich and poor for the good of the city. Thank you.
Rich, thank you so much. Appreciate those words. Anyone else? If not, we will move on to our... There's one more, Mayor. There's one more. Oh, good evening. Welcome. Sorry.
Good evening. Randa Heller. Last week I spoke. I am incredibly happy to say that I have spoken briefly or at a little bit of length to 6 of the 8 counselors. I was kind of devastated last week because I too thought the city council on process could really come together. I really appreciate those last remarks. I think that that is incredibly true. And when I spoke to the council members, I said, how can you direct people who need to be directed somewhere else and not take the time? How can you compromise? And what would it take to run a meeting efficiently, to have the input that you need at the beginning? Because last week, I thought the comments were eloquent. And if you have 35 people that show up to speak, you know that there's a whole lot more that feel it, that just can't come, and that people are coming here tonight. That's incredible. And I thought that you weren't listening. And when I spoke to council members and during the week, you know what I heard? I heard compromise. I did. I was so excited. So I hope the compromise, I'm not sure exactly how it reads. I'm not sure if this is it in its entirety or not. But what I heard through the week was maybe 30 minutes at the beginning, a time limit, speaking on first readings. And I would say, I agree, that this is an agenda item, and by law, that this is something that needs to happen. But to move it to the end all the time, that doesn't seem fair either. So, and if it's important, they will stay. So if there is public input that still needs to happen, maybe the overflow could move to the end. Because I've been in Pierre, and I have hunted people down. It's a lot of work. It's very expensive. And sometimes it's not all that pleasant. Sometimes it's very productive. And what happens is sometimes at the end of the meeting, somebody's on their phone, somebody's taking a bathroom break, somebody's leaving, somebody's reading a newspaper. There's a lot of things that can happen. So when I heard compromise, and every person here was so respectful to me, and I tried to be the same to them. And when I say, whoever spoke tonight and said about the judge and his gavel, too true. If it's vulgar, if it's profane, turn off the mic. If it's personal, lay out those rules. I mean, there were rules in my house when I had teenagers. My kids say, "You think you're a queen?" I said, "Yes, I am the queen. This is my castle." The rules of respect will be here. And anybody who does not go by those rules, across the moat they go. And they can come back through the gate when they are ready to live by those rules. It's as I said last week, this isn't Hollywood. It's not the Tony Awards. We're Sioux Falls. And we are neighbors here. And we can be. And I have, every one of you, when I spoke to you, was reasonable, was kind, was respectful. And I must say, I'm not going to name any names, but one counselor, I don't know if they had personal things, but they did not get back to me. A good reason to have the input at the beginning is because if that council person can't get back to you, they can at least hear your voice here before they do make a vote. And I appreciate it so much. So thank you so much.
Queen Randa, thank you. Can I go you that? Anyone else? Tom, next item.
The next item, Mayor, is the item that was pulled from the consent agenda.
Thank you. I pulled the consent. Counselor Brecky would like to recuse herself.
Okay.
Yes, I need to recuse myself, and again, my understanding of recusal is you need to declare your conflict of interest. Our ethics ordinance holds us to the highest standard, the appearance of impropriety. My daughter is an associate at the Woods Fuller Law Firm, and there is a contract for water reclamation services that has been farmed out from the city attorney's office to the Woods Fuller Law Firm. And then also, just in the effort of full disclosure, I mean, I sat today through the follow-up event that happens as a result of these contracts. I don't think there's any reason why I can't benefit from their services, but I do think that I should not be voting on what they're paid. So whenever this happens, you know, I do intend to remove myself. So I will do that, and then I will return when they finish dealing with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brecky. Next item.
If we could get a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll move to approve.
Second, Starr. Motion to approve Erickson, seconded by Councilor Starr. And I need a roll call vote on that.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes. That passes 7-0. Next item.
Next item is a motion to approve items 25 through 102.
Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening. I am here to answer any questions that you might have regarding these items, and also I am going to need to request a motion to amend item number 47 to remove the words requesting off-sale use only.
All right. First, I'll need a motion on the amendment. We'll take that first.
Mr. Mayor?
Motion to approve. Okay, first I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Selberg. Motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion on that? Okay. And I need a roll call vote on that, please?
Don't
If we could get a motion if there's an amendment. Yeah. An amendment.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to amend item 47 by removing the words requesting off-sale use only.
Okay.
Second, Selberg.
All right, motion by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Selberg to change item 47 to remove the words requesting off-sale use only. Any discussion on that? Okay, if not, I need a roll call vote, please.
Councilor Knights.
Do you have a comment, Councilor Knights?
Yeah, I do have a question. Considering this new license, with this change, if we're taking away requesting off-sale only, what exactly are we approving? Are we approving them to have on-sale plus be able to do off-sale? Because, I mean, obviously they're going to need the on-sale for the video lottery, but, I mean, could they sell alcohol to be taken off the premises now?
They could, yes. So by design, the RB license, as we call it, or the retail beer license, is both an on and off sale license, which means any of the businesses that have an RB license can have people consume on site, or they can sell the alcohol to go. Due to the state law change of the repeal, we have had to do a slight little tweak to license request by adding the requesting off-sale use only. The license still is an RB and typically still is an on and off-sale license, but the folks on this that have stated specifically that they are only plan to use it for off-sale only, our intent is to make sure that we let you know that that is their intent on that license. And the reason that, because is if they were, just for an example, like a convenience store, it might require them to go through a conditional use permit process first, but since it's a state law change, and this was just a little tweak that we did to be able to accommodate these licenses with kind of minimal stress, I guess, on the applicants.
Okay, but are there other video lottery casinos, and is this an outlier where they're getting both and others are only using just the on-sale part, or? I mean, going forward, or is it just going to be assumed that video lottery casinos will now be able to sell packaged liquor to take home, or growlers, or?
Well, they always have been able to if they wanted to. Yeah, the
They
license.
could have.
The license itself hasn't changed. Well, I shouldn't say that. It has changed slightly. The RB now has been expanded to include South Dakota farm wines. So before, all of the RB license, anybody that had an RB license was allowed to sell both on and off sale.
Really? Okay. They just typically many times just don't do it.
Right.
They could do it. They just don't do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, I need a roll call vote on the amendment, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Okay, that is passed 8-0, and now I need a roll call vote on the amended main motion to approve.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That also passes 8-0. We'll move to item 103.
Item 103, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 111, alcoholic beverages.
I do not have any additional information for you other than what was presented at the the May 22nd informational and the first reading on June 5th, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Because this is a second reading, is there any one from the public who would like to speak on this topic? Okay, if not, any counselors, questions for Jamie on this?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kiley.
Motion to approve, Erickson, seconded by Counselor Kiley. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 104, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, updating ordinance number 52-17, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and authorizing the disposition thereof.
Welcome, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is the second reading that we'll ask for your support that we could sell a small piece of land near 8th and Cliff. City purchased this property back in 2015 in conjunction with the 8th and Cliff intersection improvement. The main project is done. We have reserved some land for a future right turn lane, bus stop, and a potential entrance sign into the downtown on 8th Street. And we would ask for your support.
Second reading on this item. Is there any public input on this topic? Councilors, any questions for Mark? If not, I'd ask for motion to approve.
Move approval. Second, Neitzer.
Move to approve Selberg, seconded by Neitzer. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Star.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That's pass 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 106, set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 106. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.015, addressing the council time limit.
Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments. I want to thank, first of all, everybody that is here tonight, that came out tonight for their input, that came out last week to share their views, that have shared their views through other forms of public input, through both phone, text, and email. We've been hearing from you a lot in the last couple of weeks, as we figured we would, and that's quite frankly a main goal of this ordinance was to have this conversation on a topic that's been hanging out there for quite some time. As I have said repeatedly, I am an advocate of public input. Public input is vital. It's important we hear from the citizens, as we always have, but it's a part of our agenda that needed some attention, and that's what we've been giving it. We've listened to folks on all sides of this issue. We've heard you, and we have worked diligently. Everybody has worked diligently over the past few days to come up with this compromise. I agree with the gentleman who got up here and spoke about the need for unity in this council, especially a new council with our new members and our new mayor, and I believe that we displayed it here. I appreciate the effort everyone made to come together and compromise. I do believe that that is good leadership and what the people expect and deserve, and I especially want to thank the mayor and his team for their input and their leadership on this as well. I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it was a good team effort, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I yield the chair to Councilor Erickson, so I can speak to this as well. I want to thank everyone as well for their input on this. And what happened last Tuesday night, we had a great meeting. Public input was great. I got to the office on Wednesday and honestly started to call a lot of the councilors and said, guys, I think there's compromise that we can find here. This is not how I want to start my administration, and I think there's some middle ground that we can find here. And I know there were votes to hammer this thing through and change it, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but what I wanted to do was step back and take a look at a lot of the comments that we've heard. And the comments we heard are keep public input at the beginning. We want to provide input on first readings. We're fine with lowering the time limit from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. There's a lot of input that was been given us, and we listened to it. And I called all of the counselors on Wednesday, with the exception of Councilor Starr, who was at a CCOG meeting. And I said, I think there's something here, and I think there's a compromise. And I laid it out to them, and they have carried the water to come up with this compromise. And so I'm super proud of this council. I'm super proud of the way that they coordinated a compromise that I think is a real win for the constituents, for the business of the city. And to Rich, who spoke earlier, I think it will help create some unity as well right now, which I think the city needs, I think our council needs, I think our administration needs. And so I'm just very proud of these councilors and the leadership they've displayed over the past week. So I would really ask for council support on this for a second reading.
And I will pass the gavel.
Councilor Staley.
Well, I am going to vote to pass this through to a second reading. And first of all, let me say that as our community grows, our we need to be expanding public input. We do not need to be diminishing it. And I want to say, first of all, you've all been here as witnesses to how our new mayor has handled this meeting. The respect he has given to people who have concerns. Now, generally, we don't do a back and forth talking. That's been kind of a policy, we don't talk. You did that, and I had lunch today with Mayor Dave Munson, former mayor, back in his time. People were allowed to have dialogue back and forth. And by the way, when I've been reaching out to people across town. I want to say thank you to those who are praying for this. Thank you for those of you who have reached out to us. And the majority of people who reached out to me anyway said, leave this at the beginning of the meeting. But as I'm having lunch with Dave Munson, who reached out to me today to talk about this, Jim Clark and Paul Schiller come over. These are two big names in Sculpture Walk. They're like, what's going on here with this? And both of them said, yeah, take it down to 3 minutes and then that's it, and use the gavel. I talked to Craig Lloyd this morning, same thing, he's a leader in our community. I talked to Doug Hayek, his wife was here last week talking to us. They all said, leave it at the beginning of the meeting and leave it alone. One of the things that we're talking about, a problem that, by the way, I didn't feel was a problem, but there's a problem with repeat public inputters. I think this is the problem. We have few individuals who've been here many times. And sometimes maybe it's hard to hear what they're saying. And I think with our new mayor, I do believe he's going to be reaching out and trying to help them and listen to them. I think a lot of this was going to solve its own problem. So that's why I was like surprised when this came out of nowhere 2 weeks ago that we were going to be moving it to the back of the meeting. And I put my time and my money and my heart into alerting the community that this isn't going to be the best thing for us. But I also was curious because I'm okay with the 3 minutes. People will have to be much more concise. They're going to have to know what they're going to say. So I agreed with that. I asked that we have ability to give input on the first reading. So I was in on that. I wasn't in on saying we couldn't have any photographs shown when people are giving their testimony. I think if you have a picture of a situation, whether it's your house or that retaining wall that's falling down, and you want to show a few different views of that, I don't see where that harms anyone. And actually, I don't even know that a PowerPoint or a video is problematic for me. As long as it's respectful, if it's your 3 minutes to use. We allow department heads, we allow all sorts of people to show audio-visual things. So that I'm not quite on board with. However, I also want to say this 30-minute thing, I would like to take that off the table too, and I can have an amendment next week or whenever this comes forth if I want to. But I was just wondering how often we've used more than 10, we've had more than 10 public inputters. So I had my wonderful our wonderful city clerk, Tom Greco, he made up a little chart, and there's a copy of it on the desk there if you want to get it. But we got a chart here that shows every meeting in the last year and how many people showed up for public input. And only 4 times did we have more than 10 people speak. And those happen to be high intensity community concern times. One of them was the Icon Lounge. Nick Weiland's out there. He knows. I mean, those people came forth. That was not an agenda item, but these people were concerned about this issue that had happened downtown with entertainment versus residential. So I really don't think that we've had a problem with massive amounts of people coming to public input. So I would like to see that 30-minute thing taken off the table. I'm just going to say this publicly, that if we took it off the table and then we try it out, I'm happy to revisit it down the road. And this is what we call compromise. This is called discussion. Please don't say I'm rigidly rejecting this, because I'm not. But I'm just saying I think we have the right and the responsibility to be discussing these things and say, you know, what's going to be the best fit right now in our community. So the photo thing I'd like to see change. I'd like to loosen up on that 30-minute thing. And then I would also I told some of my colleagues today, if we wanted to implement a thing where you can only speak once a month, unless it's an agenda item, you know, I could go with that. You can only write a letter to the editor, I believe, about once a month, or whenever the Argus might say you can have one in. but I think they have a 30-day limit. So just something to just throw out there to say I'm willing. I know it's been a problem. It wasn't a problem for me, but I know it's been uncomfortable for some of my colleagues. So I'm going to be voting yes on this, but again, I might be adding some amendments moving forward, okay?
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Neitzer.
Great comments so far, both from the public and from the other counselors. Before I talk about the main thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't want to bore you, and I'm not going to go into a 10-minute dissertation, but I would tell you a few of us counselors have been spending a lot of time on the decorum issue, and it is a tricky, tricky business. There's been a lot of talk of people that just say, well, if people are rude or disrespectful, just gavel them or tell them to sit down or ban them from meetings. And you will find that in a limited public forum like this, it is there's very narrow exceptions, and there is a lot of case law out there in the last 10 years that bears that out. Ejecting people and then banning them for meetings, or telling people they can only go once a month, or saying you can't say mean things. There's even ability to use profanity. There's very limited exceptions. What it really comes down to is disruption. You can stand there and call me names, but if you won't sit down after your time is up, now you've got a problem. Or if you're going to call me names while you're throwing a chair at me, that's a problem. So there's a few exceptions like fighting words and things like that, but you would be surprised if you read the case law of how extreme meetings have become, and actions that have been overturned. So that's where it gets very difficult. So in a public body, you really have what they call time, manner, place restrictions. You can set parameters as far as how long people can talk, how much total input, what time of the meeting, because those are content and viewpoint neutral. But to be imposing restrictions such as you can't talk unless you're nice, things like that, you can't do that. Once you open up the public forum, with very limited exceptions, it's a free-for-all. And so that's where it's been really, really difficult. So I just wanted to throw that out. And I think maybe we'll have a discussion about that in the future, and it would be great, I think, if the attorneys maybe walked us all through that. I do want to say that we all believe in public input. Every single one of us, with everything we do, we're trying to represent the citizens. And that's it's not just those that come to meetings, which are very valuable, but I always like to make sure to remember that there's also 178,500 citizens. So while it's important to listen to 25, 35, whoever come to a meeting and speak, you have thousands of other citizens you represent. If it was just as easy as I just, vote with who shows up to a given meeting, well, then my job would be very, very easy. I wouldn't even need to be here. We just take a straw poll. And I also want to point out that we take input in a lot of ways. I want you to think about when we moved public input, not we, but whoever was on the council 16 years ago. I want you to rewind 16 years. There was no social media. There was no email. None of that. And cell phones were essentially these big phones with the big antennas. You can reach me 24/7. I have my phone on me. I'm getting emails at midnight. I'm responding. It is unprecedented, the access you have to give input to your elected leaders, particularly here locally. Unprecedented. So we take a lot of public input. Now, that is not minimizing the general public input that we take here, but I want you to know that is a small fraction of all of the things that we hear. There's so many things that happen outside of a council meeting where we get a call and we call the city staff member and we get it taken care of, and we just do it because that's our job, and that's what we're paid to do, and that's what we should do. I also want to touch a little bit on, again, the only thing I was disappointed by was the kind of the rich versus poor, kind of the class warfare rhetoric, because again, I'm going to say that all of us are citizens. I totally understand people that come to public input. They're coming here, they may be elderly, they have kids, they want to get their kids to bed, they're tired, all of those things. But we have issues that affect people's lives. Big time, agenda items, and we see them all the time, and some of the people in this room will come to agenda items. I see somebody here concerned about an agenda item that I just talked about before the meeting. Something that may happen near her house that we're going to talk about at a rezoning would have a major impact on her home, and she's concerned about it. She's a citizen too. She's not a developer. She's not getting $500 an hour to be here. I'm sure she has other things she would like to do. So I'm not minimizing those that come to public input. I am just saying I wish everybody would remember that there's a lot of citizens in this city, and those people deserve some consideration, and they have all of the exact same concerns. So to just assert that only wealthy developers show up for agenda items it's just unfair. And I also do regret the fact that we've denigrated the people that invest in our community. So essentially, this debate has been really vastly overcomplicated. All we're talking about is when would be the best time to take input in a meeting. In a meeting, you essentially have public input and you deal with the city business. I mean, that's what a meeting is for, is to get the city's business done. Now, I support the compromise because I think it's going to be the best way that we can hear from the citizens that we heard from. We can have a amount of public input at the beginning, which is what the citizens that came said that they would like to have. They spoke that loud and clear. But it also will set essentially kind of a time certain where we get to the agenda items, and that people that are here for agenda items, they will have their time and they'll know when it will come. But again, I think one of the problems is this is such a difficult issue, because if it were just as simple as if somebody swears or if somebody says something rude that we could just throw them out of the meeting and ban them for a month, we wouldn't be here. And so I think we've all been wrestling with that. But I just wanted to give that perspective. Every single one of us cares about the citizens. This is not about a handful of people who care about only wealthy developers and don't care about citizens, and then the other side that cares about the citizens. That's unfair and it's unfortunate. And I hope we can unify here, and I will support the compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Neitzer. Councilor Kiley.
I'm going to be shorter than Councilor Neitzer. I just, first of all, want to say that I appreciate the mayor and the mayor's staff reaching out to councilors and getting this all on the road to compromise. And I am fully supporting the compromise. I'm committed to seeing this go through, as the mayor had laid out earlier. And just as a clarification, Councilor Staley, the document camera is now allowed. It's not part of this ordinance. So it has served its purpose well in the past, and it will continue to serve its purpose well into the future too. So again, thank you. Thank you to everybody here this evening, and look forward to voting on this evening, as well as our second reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I couldn't let this go without my 2 cents too. There's been a lot of talk about that the council doesn't hear the citizens. Well, I think this is an example where the first reading was to set something in motion. We heard what the citizens wanted. We reached a compromise. Leadership by the mayor and his staff and other council people have done this. I will say one of the things that hit me last week, and I hate to call anybody out by name because I can't pronounce her name, Kathy Breckens, I can't spell it either. But when she talked about people not being able to be here because the paratransit not running, the bus is not running, I said, well, that's really not fair. Let's see if we can fix that. Well, I can't fix the paratransit overnight. You can't fix the bus service overnight. But when those people that want to be here and physically are impaired from being here, that really hit home for me. And I know she has done so much for the community over the years. I don't see her here tonight, but I had conversations with her, and I think that's one of the things. So I'm in favor of the compromise. I was excited that following day when the phone started ringing, the different council members and the mayors in the office to see if we can resurrect some things that were previously talked about, that let's refine it and come together. So I'm going to support the compromise. I think it's the way that, good government is about compromise. We all don't always get what we want. But that's why I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Councilor Sale. Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. I was obviously the lone counselor not here last week. We had a family vacation for my son who plays soccer, and so we were out of town for about 9 days. And so my phone rang nonstop, my email rang nonstop, and I appreciate all the feedback that I received. I did read through them. Unfortunately, I was not able to respond to everyone because of my time away, so I apologize for that. But your emails did not go unread. The product that you see in front of you is just that. It is compromise. It is talking about how we can make this better for everyone. Oftentimes, I think that what we forget, the intent of public input wasn't maybe necessarily for those to come for those first readings, but it's evolved to that. And so we honor that. And so one of the things we thought, well, all those folks that want to come and use public input on a first reading, let's give them that opportunity to speak on those first reading. We've heard the previous administration has used public input for that as well. And we've moved things along respecting public input for those first readings. And so to allow it on the first reading will accomplish just that and allow the public input for those unrelated items. I do want to also remind that the fraction of public input that takes place here is probably only about 5 to 10% of the time of all the information that we receive, the phone calls, at the basketball games, at the grocery stores, at wherever we are, just on the street. I was stopped by a greeter in Walmart the other day that wanted to talk about public input, so I did. So it's things like that we are constantly engaging citizens. All of us deeply care about each and every one of you, as well as every single person that's not here. I not only received emails saying, move it to the back or keep it in the front, but it was pretty equal. I had a lot of folks reaching out for that. Just because they're not here doesn't mean it didn't happen. But with that in mind, as we've talked about the compromise and as we've looked at this, there is no limit on pictures. You'll be able to show pictures. We've had people bring poster boards. We've had people whip through pictures. We've had people create a Word document with all the pictures on a collage. So there's lots of different options and avenues to work through that. I get so many emails with the pictures as well. And so I'm thankful for every single one of us having those conversations. I'm sorry I was not able to be as engaged with each other, but I was paying attention. I was reading my emails, and I'm just thankful that we're able to hopefully make some change and find that common ground amongst all of us. Good compromise is all of us not getting everything we want, and we've seen that over the last 4 years of my time on the council, where we've talked about a lot of different issues that really challenged me, took it too far, and also sometimes it didn't go far enough. And so good compromise is doing just that. And so I'd hope that everyone keeps that in mind as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Or if not, can I get a motion to set a date of...
I'd like to discuss. I've got some comments that I'm prepared to make, and I wanted to start with, yes, I'm in favor of the compromise. And it's always kind of a love fest when you've reached a compromise. And I'm going to throw a little cold water on it, though, because I'm not in favor of the process that we used to get to that compromise. And in fact, I found it very discouraging as a new council member. And so I am going to throw a little rain on the parade and explain to you what that process was. Basically, there was an expedited process used to get this ordinance before the council. And that's not necessary. There's all different kinds of committees and meetings, that the council could have put this into to vet it properly so that it didn't come down so fast and furious, and so that all of this wasn't happening, at a first reading. And then after the first reading, there's this flurry of activity, all behind the scenes activity. When I dove into this race, to become a council member, I fully expected to be in a fishbowl. Because that's what our public body is. This part of the public body of our government is a fishbowl, and we are fish in that fishbowl, and everything that surrounds that fishbowl, that's in that fishbowl with us, should be seen. Everything we do should be seen. Things shouldn't even come to us until they're public. And when they come to us, from that point forward, the public should be able to watch us. All of the discussion that we had tonight about our favorite things or unfavorite things, that could have been done in a working session. That could have been done in a full council informational. There's all kinds of vehicles that could have been put through a committee first and then into the council, but that's not how it was done. And quite frankly, how it was done was a series of individual phone calls, individual emails, and I began to get so concerned during that process, is whether or not we were actually complying with open meeting laws. Because I didn't know, we was talking about we and they and all this was going on. If people were meeting, and I was told, okay, it's been drafted. Who is drafting it? How was it met? Well, I checked it out, and I found out, yes, it was all done, through individual phone calls and emails. And I actually was so concerned about it, I sat down with the city attorney, and I said, is this okay? Is this okay that we can stay out of the public viewing by doing this through individual contacts? And I was told yes. And I thought, well, if it's okay, it sure doesn't keep in with the spirit of open meeting laws. It may keep with the technical compliance, but it bothers me a lot. And she said, it happens all the time, Janet. It happens in the state government. It happens in federal government. And I thought about that, and I thought, but we can do better than that. So even though we got here where we did and how we did, and I want to thank the mayor for that, he dove in and basically acted as a mediator. He was moved by he had compassion for the public. He was moved by the audience to action, and he demonstrated what I believed in him when I voted for him, which was that he would bring the public needs and the business interests together and provide a balance that this community hasn't seen for a while. And so I'm very proud that you did that under those circumstances, and you dealt with it under those circumstances. But going forward, I'd like the council to consider a different path. And I hope that the mayor will support the council in getting a better procedure in place so that everything isn't done as quickly and as rapidly as possible to have the least amount of contact with the public or anybody's involvement, which was a trademark, a hallmark of the last administration. I hope that we can give this administration the courtesy to not be our mediator because we've created a crisis for ourselves, but that we can properly vet our proposals, especially when they're hot-button issues, and bring them down in a path that involves public watching us as we display our courtesy and respect for each other, and as we do this in front of you, and you can watch and listen. And as I thought about that federal government and state government issue, it reminded me to consult our code of ethics. I received that during my orientation, and I want to refresh you guys on it because it's really important. The state government doesn't have a code of ethics like ours. The federal government doesn't have a code of ethics like ours. The city of Sioux Falls adopted a code of ethics when they adopted this form of government that set the bar at the very highest standard for conduct for our public officials. And it's stated most beautifully, I think, in our canons, because it tells us, the canons are not the actual law itself, but they are our inspirational statements, what we're supposed to strive to be. And moving forward, I would like to examine our processes. I would like to follow the message in these canons. I picked out several of them that I thought were very appropriate to this situation, and I'd like to read them to you now. Canon 3.4, this is the City of Sioux Falls Code of Ethics, Canon 3.4. City Council members should conduct themselves at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity of their office and city government. Canon 4.2, City Council members should respect the legitimacy of the goals and interests of other City Council members and should respect the rights of others to pursue goals differently from their own. Canon 4.1, City Council should pursue policy goals they believe to be in the best interests of their constituents within the parameters of orderly decision-making rules of the City Council and open government. Canon 4.4, City Council members should afford every person who is legally interested in a proceeding before the City Council full right to be heard according to law. And finally, City Council members should be aware of the letter and intent of the state's open meeting laws. They should conduct the affairs of the City Council consistent with the letter and the spirit of that law, and consistent with the need to inspire and maintain public confidence in the integrity and fairness of the city government and the office of the City Council member. It's a new era. We have a new mayor. We have a couple new council members. I would like to remember these canons as we move forward and create a new and different government that is really going to move this city into the next decade. I want to thank all of the people who've attended both of these meetings for coming and giving us your public input. I want to thank Teresa Staley for getting them here. She's the one that let them know that the issue was up and basically just asked people, if it's important to you, you should come. So thank you for that. And thank you, again, one thing you can expect from me if I do nothing else while I'm here on this term is that I will stand for open meetings and I will stand for good government process, and I will stand for being that fish in the fishbowl. And you can watch what I do, and I hope that my council members will join me in that, and we will open this government up and get it back to being of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I do thank my city council members for your patience in listening to my long diatribe, but I was very moved by all of that. And this whole process as a new council member had a very big impact on me. And for me, going back to the ethics code and the canons was very helpful, and I hope it was for you too. Thank you.
Councilor Brackey, thank you. Can I get a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for July 3 at 7 p.m. for item 106?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Is there any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item.
Item 105, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.013, Order of Business.
I'm trying to clarify Councilor Erickson's motion from at the beginning of the meeting.
With, in regards to item 117, is when we moved the agenda, I believe that was moved after item 105 here. So we're doing item 106?
Right.
It was moved before?
Right before 105 and after 106. Right?
Got it. So we actually are on item 117 right now instead of item 105.
Okay, correction. Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 117. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.013, Order of Business for public input on odd, even months.
Councilor Brecky, would you like to speak to this?
In light of passing it, we could just take a motion to withdraw it, a friendly motion. I'd accept a friendly motion just to withdraw it.
Second, Staley.
Okay. A motion by Councilor Brecky to withdraw this second, setting a date of second reading, seconded by Councilor Staley. Any discussion on that? If not, do we need a roll call vote on that, please?
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Now we'll move to item 105.
Item 105, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.013, Order of Business.
Councilor Selberg.
Well, in the spirit of, I kind of had my argument together why it'd be a plan B, and I've become a veteran of this process to know that developments can happen and do happen in this, and it was there to kind of put us there if something did, and we didn't have to start at ground zero. But I'm going to go along with the spirit of this evening and the unity and what everybody's saying, that they're on board with this program, and I'm confident we're going to have a second reading that's going to pass next week, so I will withdraw as well.
I second that motion.
So a motion by Councilor Selberg to withdraw this ordinance from second reading, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor, because it
Councilor
is
Starr.
a date of hearing, do we still have to, because it's being withdrawn, do we still, I guess I'm asking the city attorney more of a point of order, if we have to go ahead with the hearing as well because we've scheduled for the hearing, or can we withdraw?
I think the rules would permit withdrawal.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? If not, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, councilors. Next item.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 107. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the northwest corner of West 12th Street and South Ellis Road from the POPUD Pedestrian-Oriented Plan Unit Development District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District. Petition number 8447-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
Hi, Jason.
Good evening. Jason Bieber representing Planning and Building Services. This is an application, and the owner of this is Van Buskirk with Van Buskirk Companies. It is located at the northwest corner of West 12th Street and South Ellis Road. It's just under 12 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing a third phase of the Cherry Lake Reserve Development, and he's looking at constructing roughly 36 villa-style single-family homes at this on this property.
Thank you, Jason. Councilors, questions for Jason? Councilor Neitzer.
I don't know how I'm going to go on this yet, but it does give me a good deal of heartburn, and I think you're going to know why, and it's because of the comprehensive plan and the dot that is there. And I am thinking about situations, it's not a green dot, I get that, but there's also 3 other legs of this intersection, and I just worry if we're going to set ourselves up for a problem, maybe not this council, but down the road, you put residential right up to 2 arterials, and then somebody goes to develop that other leg of the intersection, and we end up in some sort of a war about, you know, I'm residential, I ought to be protected, the city let me build here, all of those things that, and I understand that right now it's probably not marketable because there's really nothing out there yet except for this development. But once Basin 15 goes in, it goes west. There's not enough rooftops yet, but there will be someday. So I guess I would just wonder what your response to that would be if this is being short-sighted and we're going to be in a fight down the road because of this decision.
It's a good point. We typically don't like to see single family on the corner of 2 arterial streets as 12th Street and Ellis Road is. However, we've made that kind of clear to the applicant. The applicant feels that this property is, as you indicated, not marketable right now for commercial development. He feels that he can adequately indicate to the property owners here what the future of this intersection is going to be, that there will be some commercial development. And as if you've ever went out there and went west, he's done a really good job of buffering those single-family houses from the arterials. So he feels, as you can see with the lots that abut those, they're extra deep lots. He feels that he can adequately provide that buffer of those single-family homes to those arterials and eliminate some of that noise and pollution that we see from that stuff. So.
Okay, I do get that. I would say there's a slight distinction between backing up to an arterial versus being at the intersection of an arterial. I just, you know how these things go. Down the road, somebody may say, you know, the realtor told me, why did they zone it this way? And are we aggrieving the property owners on the other legs of the intersection that they're going to have a hard time doing what they're supposed to do at this intersection, which is build a, you know, an employment center. So I'm not sure how I'll go on it, but I'd be interested maybe if there's anything they're talking about buffering besides just the extra deep lots. So yeah, it's a balance between property rights versus setting up for a wider fight later. So just my input.
And I think those are important questions that the applicant may be addressed at second reading with his business model and what he's seeing happening out here. So
that'd be good. Thanks.
Councilor Staley.
I have a question for Councilor Neitzer. Is there a chance this could end up being like the 85th and Brett? I mean, when you're talking about, well, I mean, you're the expert on these rezoning things.
Well, I would defer to planning to being the experts on zoning, but that is something that I am thinking about. Is it setting it because it's supposed to be, you know, have whatever it is, 60 acres, I think, or something like that, 15 on each leg of the intersection, 50% commercial. Yeah. So that's what it's designed for. It is not a green dot like the Walmart was. It's not even near that. But just that's sort of a thought process that it is designed for commercial, and so you would expect on those other legs that some way down the road you're going to see commercial development, and then of course you're going to have single-family homeowners saying, "Wait a second, I was here first. You know, why are you Why are we allowing all of this development? There's going to be all this traffic, and then you end up in this huge argument. So that's my hesitation.
Well, yeah, and after going through that issue, was that about a year and a half ago? I mean, that, very unfortunate when people have their homes and then they find out there's going to be a three-story apartment, workforce housing in their backyard. So I think we got to be careful in our community that we're not leading people into a false sense of neighborly security.
And that's a good point. However, on 85th and Brett, that property was zoned ag. If you look here, the property to the north is still zoned that POPUD. So when these people buy their homes, they're going to know that the property to the north allows apartments, it allows commercial, it allows townhomes, all that different stuff. So it's a little bit different of a situation.
Councilor Starr, did you have a question for Jason?
Well, more of a statement, because this is where we get in trouble all the time, because we always say it's that first homeowner is going to get the message of what's going on. It's when they resell and we get 2 or 3 down and they say they didn't know. And that's, you know, what does that do to, I guess the question is, and what does that do to that ag land that's across the street that'll be future commercial then? I mean, we're affecting their property value as well. We say we can't, that it, you know, isn't marketable at this point without doing this, but we're also affecting the other 3 corners too.
And the lady that does own the property to the south was at the Planning Commission meeting, and we did speak with her afterwards. We would still treat her land as what the comprehensive plan, it's still a neighborhood or a community employment center. She still would be allowed the amount of commercial acres, and in this instance, probably more because some of it has been taken away from the northwest corner. So.
Well, and that's, I'm looking at the northeast too, is where I'm probably...
Yep, the owner of the northeast corner is I believe, Jim Sukup, who is part of this whole development, so.
Yeah, I think so. Makes it a little more interesting. Thank you.
Other questions for Jason? If not, I'd ask for a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for July 3 at 7 p.m.
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
Kylie?
Moved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 108. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located north of West 32nd Street and east of South Ellis Road from the LW Live Work District to the CN Conservation District. Petition number 8463-2018 and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Ronning Companies. It's located north of West 32nd Street and east of South Ellis Road. It's roughly 2 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at expanding, as you can see on this aerial, the existing detention pond to the south. So this will be part of that existing detention pond.
Questions for Jason, Council?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Motion to approve Erickson, seconded by Councilor Selberg to set a date of hearing and second reading for July 3. Any discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Next item.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 109. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the northeast corner of West 26th Street and South Ellis Road from the LW Live Work District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District. Petition number 8537-2018 and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner is also Ronning Companies. It's located northeast of the Casey's General Store that's being constructed on the corner there. It's about 1.4 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing some retail development to the north and east of the existing Casey's store.
Questions for Jason on this?
I do.
Councilor Erickson.
Is that going to continue north then? I mean, I saw just a sliver, but on that map, it looks like it's going to be retail development kind of going further if you go to the next preliminary plan.
Yeah, those buildings to the north, so you've got the Casey's on the corner, then you have a building to the east, and then two buildings to the north. Everything north of that, they're just proposing some apartments because it's zone live work, so.
Okay, so that will be apartments and not necessarily commercial?
It wouldn't be allowed to be commercial up there right now.
That would be the transition then? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jason? If not, can I get a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for July 3 at 7 p.m.?
So moved, Neitzer.
Second, Kylie?
Moved by Neitzer, seconded by Kylie. Roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 110. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 2605 and 2609 South Carolina Avenue from the C4 Commercial Regional District to the I-1 Light Industrial District, petition number 8549-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval, 5-0.
The applicant is Robert Gales. The owner is Michael Jackson. This is located north of West 41st Street and adjacent to I-29 to the east. It's roughly 3.08 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Egg and Drywall currently has their business on the south lot at 2609. They did just purchase I-29 brick to the north. They're looking at constructing an addition, and then they will utilize both 2605 and 2609 as their contractor shop, Egg and Drywall business.
Questions for Jason on this? If not, can I get a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for July 3 at 7 p.m.?
So moved. Kylie?
Moved by Councilor Kylie, seconded by Councilor Sale. Any discussion? If not, a vote, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 111. It's first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located south of West 26th Street and west of South Elmwood Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the S1 General Institutional District, petition number 8534-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval, 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Richard DeSanto, representing Lifescape. It's located west of South Elmwood Avenue and north of West 28th Street and south of West 26th Street. It's about 1.84 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Lifescape is looking at vacating Elmwood Avenue between 26th and 28th Street. Then they're looking at constructing a roughly 150 space parking lot for their Lifescape facility. They currently, if you look at this aerial map to the north, they currently lease roughly 88 parking spaces from the VA. That their lease is up and the VA is not renewing their lease. They have use for those parking spaces with the continual expansion of their campus. Therefore, Lifescape needs to provide their own parking spaces. They would also net a roughly additional 62 spaces that would hopefully alleviate, if you look at the aerial here, some of the staff and visitor parking that currently park on 28th Street. Sometimes it gets difficult to get through there. They will be required a level D buffer yard along the west side. This is their buffer yard concept plan. That does include a 45-foot setback, 6-foot berm or fence, and 50 units of landscaping for every 100 lineal feet. I did show the 3 red stars in there are currently the 3 properties on that block that Lifescape doesn't own. They own all the additional properties. And then this is kind of a rendering of the buffer yard sections. If you look from the parking lot, what they will look like at different points along that parking lot. We do have Director Cotter, who's going to be discussing the vacation on item 114. So if you have specific traffic questions, he can hopefully address those at item 114.
Thank you, Jason. Councilor Sale.
Jason, I am just very uncomfortable with this whole procedure, as we've talked about and I talked about to you today. I went to the neighborhood meeting that they had at Lifescape. They had already auctioned off the houses before they started talking to the neighbors. They hadn't gone to the planning commission or the zoning. They talked to you and you said, hey, you guys have to have a meeting for the neighborhood. Now, the neighbors knew eventually this might happen. There'd been a lot of complaints about parking on both sides of the streets, a lot of traffic. But good neighbors in Sioux Falls, they work with their businesses work with the neighborhood works with the business. I think in this case, Lifescape failed. And they failed the neighborhood, and when they fail the neighborhood, that means they failed all of us. I like the renderings. I understand what they're going to do, but I will be reaching out to the leadership at Lifescape in the next few days to express my displeasure with the way they went about this. I believe it probably would be the best thing for them, as they're doing a 4-year, a long-range plan. If they might eventually move outside of the city or to the outskirts. Well, that means somebody else is going to move in there. They're going to need parking spots in the future too. But I just want to express my displeasure about the way Lifescape went about this, and I'll be reaching out to them.
Thank you, Councilor Sale. Councilor Neitzer.
This is a really complicated one, and in fact, I talked to one of the neighbors that lives on that block, and she's sitting in the audience right now. There's a lot of pieces to this. As far as the buffer yard goes, there was some talk about the topology. Have you looked at all at the grade? There was I guess an assertion that even because of the grade, like the way in which the land lays, that even with the buffer yard, with the berm and the fence, that neighbors would maybe still be looking into the parking lot. Is that kind of addressed by this drawing here?
Yeah, we had those concerns at the Planning Commission. Lifescape was continuing with Sayer to work on their landscape plan. We didn't have these two drawings as part of that. So we didn't know exactly what the grade is going to be like. I received these at about 5:30 today, and this shows that the buffer yard should provide the screening and the intent of what we're specifically looking for as part of the ordinance. Those cars, there should be an 8-foot difference. There's a 6-foot fence going to be right at the edge of the parking lot. And most of, as you can see, most of the other topography looks like it goes up towards the houses. So,
Well, I would think we could obviously validate that by elevations. I mean, in-house, we could figure out if we believe that the buffer yard is going to create that screening. But were they proposing to put a fence on top of the berm? Is that what I understood, or did I hear that wrong?
there's been some talks with the neighborhood. I believe at one point the neighborhood wanted, I think, a fence on top of a retaining wall. The way that they're showing on this, though, is it looks like the fence is directly adjacent to the parking lot, and that helps out a lot with lights from the cars and things like that. And then that's typically what we like, to be able to then have the landscape on the other side of the fence to give the neighbors more of the actual buffer yard area, the green space, the trees and things like that, instead of having a fence and all the trees that they can't see.
Yeah, so the neighbor obviously gets a benefit of the landscaping, preferably. Yep. And I don't know whether or not they had to, when there was a change of ownership or whatever happened here when that, when they took over, but in this situation, is there a deal where, since they're losing their leased parking, that they may be below required parking and now they're in some sort of violation unless they can find some somewhere else, or are they grandfathered in, or do you know where that's at?
I would say with that, I would say they would have enough parking just with how long they've been there. I think that those spaces they lease from the VA were just extra ones that they wanted to have for their staff and employee and visitors. It's just, there's just, with the two businesses that are there, as you look, and then the one to the east, there's just cars parked all over the streets. We're hoping that this specific parking lot can address some of that and get those cars off the street and get them into a parking lot. I've got this also drawing that they provided. So the neighborhood had major concerns with cars utilizing 28th Street to get in the parking lot. I know that they're going to communicate with the staff and visitors, if this is proposed, to have them utilize 26th Street to get into the parking lot. The only people that will be using 28th Street are kind of the buses that are dropping off kids, and I believe the applicant indicated they only have like 4 or 5 buses a day that come there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Well, I was able to drive past this maybe a few months ago, where they were ripping the trees out and taking out the houses, and I'm always sad when I see us losing these residential homes. but I've got a few questions and a comment. First of all, this is the first reading. I have received one email from a resident, and if you're here or wherever you are, I apologize. I didn't get back to you yet because I've had this public input thing fallen off my plate. So I will reach out to you. However, I've heard from one person. And once again, this is the first reading. This would be a perfect time that these residents would be able to get up and address us. And had they known, they could have come into the public input time and maybe told us their concerns. So having heard from one person, apparently there's more. And could you tell us what the concerns they have? Is it the aesthetics of the parking lot, or?
It's the normal ones we hear. I mean, we have a public hearing at Planning Commission that was on June 6th or 5th. We had 6 or 7, maybe more neighbors that came to voice their concerns. It's the ones we hear is drainage, which they're going to provide a drainage pond for it. It's property values, it's traffic, those different things. The 3 property owners that I haven't read there, they were concerned about the buffer yard. We didn't have these drawings here that would give them a good idea what it's going to look like. So I think that was one of their concerns, and I definitely am going to forward these drawings to the residents over there that have been communicating with me. And those are what we've heard.
Let's talk about the buffer yard issue. That when they have these plans, and then they tell the people, and we pass this, and we got this buffer yard in front of us. The Lifescapes is mandated to do that buffer yard, or is that just a suggestion kind of thing?
This is what they're proposing to do. They're not mandated at this point. They're showing 59 feet. They're showing all those different plantings. I mean, if they get to the buffer yard part and they change a tree from this to that, it's not an issue.
But what if they would just decide to just throw a few little perennials in and say, call it good?
They couldn't do that. They still have to meet the minimum of the ordinance, which is the 45 foot. They still have to provide a 6-foot fence or berm, and they still have to provide the minimum landscape units, which 50 units per every 100 lineal feet. I mean, that gets you 8 1 or 2 inch caliber deciduous trees every 100 feet. They'd have to provide at the minimum.
Because it seemed like one time we had a situation where we were a little more definitive about what that would look like.
I think you're talking about the Billion project at 41st in Minnesota, where there was a mandate for them to go to the Planning Commission for an alternative site plan to do their buffer yard, whatever they had showed at the meeting.
And then I'm just curious, the VA, why are they not ending the lease? What did they say? They're expanding, or?
The VA, as we run into with any hospital, and I'm not sure how long that Lifescape has leased those parking spaces. That might be a good question for the applicant, but as all these hospitals, they always need parking. And when their lease is up for 68 parking spaces, or 88 parking spaces, they tend not to renew those leases because they always need more parking.
I agree with Kurt, with my colleague here, that once you've taken those houses out, it's really kind of too late to backtrack, because you've made the huge dent into the neighborhood. But anyway, thank you for your information.
Councilor Starr.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 17th at 7 p.m.
Okay.
I think we're proposing July 10th, sorry.
I have a reason I wanted to do it.
Okay,
I was waiting
sure,
for
sorry.
a second, so.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Councilor Staley.
Mr. Mayor,
Discussion
if I
on
could.
that.
I think, in my mind, I have some concern with this project, and an extra week may give them some time to negotiate with the neighborhood and work some things out. So I think giving them an extra week to have some time to talk amongst themselves and both sides to get together, to work together, would be a good thing for this applicant.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Now I'd ask for a vote on that motion, which is, again, to set a date of hearing for second reading for July 10 at 7 p.m.
17.
Or, excuse me, July 17, not the 10th. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
No.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Next item, please.
A resolution adopting the 2018 City Council policies and procedures.
Good evening. Jim David, Operations Manager for the City Council. During this year's legislative session, House Bill 1172 was approved overwhelmingly by both the House and the Senate. This new law requires that every official meeting of the public body reserve a specific amount of time or reserve time for public comment. In response to this, the City Council working session met last month to determine how best to implement House Bill 1172 before it became law on July 1st. The results of this meeting were reviewed by the Operations Committee with no changes. The committee did, however, recommend some language to clarify a couple areas of the Council's travel policy. Both these items were discussed at last week's informational meeting. The proposed amendment addressing public comment can be found on page 4 of your procedures manual, as is proposed. As recommended during the working session, the policy differentiates between two types of meetings: a special meeting and all other non-regular meetings. When it comes to a special meeting, public comment would be allowed after the staff presentation, but before the council discussion and voting. Public comment during all other non-regular meetings would be held at the end of the agenda for a minimum of 15 minutes, 5 minutes per speaker. Any public comment offered during either of these meetings must also address the agenda topics. The policy also includes additional language clarifying that the 15-minute minimum should be expanded when time allows or when the information provided is addressing a complex matter. As stated earlier, there was a couple of minor changes to the council's travel policy and intended to clarify a couple points. First, that the travel policy addresses not only counselors but also its staff. Secondly, that council suggests that air travel originate from the Sioux Falls Regional Airport and that any reimbursement for travel take place after the trip is completed and a reimbursement claim is submitted. Be happy to answer any of your questions.
Councilor Neitzer.
Just for the benefit of the public, since we've been talking so much about public input, I just want to be really clear that these provisions here do not address the 7 p.m. meeting. These are all of our other meetings, such as an informational at 4 o'clock and our committee meetings and things like that that are time bound because we have another meeting coming up. So just to be very clear, this is not yet another proposal to mess with 7 p.m. So just for clarity.
This item also is open for public input, if anyone has comments or thoughts on this topic. Okay. Councilor Erickson.
This actually expands the additional public input, so we're really expanding it to multiple committees, many of those that we did voluntarily, but we wanted to have it in procedure manual to uphold the integrity of the House Bill 1172 that came through, but we are allowing it at the informational meeting for those items on there. And so this is yet one more avenue that folks can address the council for that. And so I just want to make sure that point is heard, because for those that think that we're taking it away, we're really expanding it even further today. So thank you for this, and thank you for everyone's feedback, because this was certainly all counselors' feedback were honored and drafted to make sure that this policy was brought forward. So. And thanks for presenting. I'll move to approve.
Second, Selberg.
Motion approved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Councilor Brecky, did you have comments?
I want to use this as an example, a shining example, since I raved and ranted earlier about how it should be done. You know, this policy change, this state law 1172 came down, and the discussion was presented in a operations or a working session was scheduled. The full council sat right around here, and we discussed what the changes should be. You know, we debated, we brought forth every suggestions, we had different ideas, and then we turned it over to the operations committee, who then kind of fine-tuned what they had heard at the meeting, and then brought it back to you. Back to the council in an informational meeting where they could say, okay, yeah, that's what we said, any fine tuning, and then to you tonight at the public meeting. To me, this is good process. This is good open discussion. Since the working session was a public session, people could watch us. They watched us the whole way from beginning to end as we dealt with this issue. And so I will definitely be supporting it.
Any other comments? If not, can I get a roll call vote on this, please?
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Diane Metley, Board of Museum Trustees, Sarah Bowman, Kayla Heber, Megan Myers, Cassidy Smith to the Commission on Human Relations, Carolyn Lai to the Disability Awareness Commission, Sean Irvin and Larry Lutke to the Planning Commission, and Jean Bedow to the Siouxland Library Board of Trustees.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? All right, councilors, any discussion on that?
We always like
first
to-
I'll take.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We always ask if any of these folks are here. Oftentimes, they don't hang around till the tail when their name is read, but we like to recognize them if they are here. Are there any folks here for this? Seeing none, I'll move to approve then.
Second?
Motion to approve by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any further discussion? If not, a vote to approve, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item, 114.
Set a date of hearing for Tuesday, July 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 114, a proposed resolution vacating the South Elmwood Avenue right-of-way from the south right-of-way line of West 26th Street to the north right-of-way line of West 28th Street.
Hey, Mark.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. This is the companion item to item 11, and the fact that you did move that hearing to July 17th, if you would so amend this motion to sync that up, we would appreciate that. I just have some additional information that Jason has shared to build on his presentation. Our first slide just essentially shows other street vacations that have happened in this area of the city to the north with the VA north of that yellow line. Over time, the VA has requested that public right-of-way be vacated as they expand, and several street segments have been vacated over to Kiwanis, Sanford Hospital, Augustana. There's some other ones in that general area. Just to give you a perspective, you'll see about 5 to 10 of these street vacation requests a year, and one of the sort of underlining key factors is you have to have 100% support on both sides of the street for the vacation request for even us to bring it forward to you. So in this case, as you know, based on Jason's presentation, Lifescape does own the property on both sides of Elmwood Avenue, and so we've checked that, certainly validated that it's an active and valid petition, and are here tonight. There was a neighborhood meeting on May 30th, and to really just start to gain some public input. As Councilor Sale mentioned, there was a communication concern that was very prevalent. We had staff at that meeting. There's also concerns that when this street segment comes out, will that shift more traffic to 28th Street and possibly Lincoln, which is immediately to the west. We have done traffic counts, essentially been working with this neighborhood for decades. There's notes in the file that go back to the 1980s of all the on-street parking that happens in this neighborhood because of the lack of adequate parking for this facility. So we do think it's a proactive step that not only are they replacing their 88 parking spots that they're losing at the VA lease, but building 150 spaces. This just gives you another perspective, and then that same picture. Again, not to duplicate anything that Jason has shared, if you would amend the motion to July 17th, we would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mark. Councilor Nitzert.
Can you back up to the screen that showed, I think there was the yellow showing a vacation, but then there was, is the blue just depict, yeah, the other one, but this one too, I guess. The blue is just depicting past vacations, I take it?
That's
Vacated?
correct. In that lower, we did put the legend in the lower left.
Okay.
So those are previous vacations. And again, you will typically see about 5 to 10 of these requests a year.
Okay, and so any of these vacations would go through your engineering department and your traffic to make sure that, so I assume the fact that you're standing here means that, I think your verbiage is you don't necessarily say support, but you're not in opposition to the vacation.
That's fair, and especially when we've taken an initial look at the traffic numbers. You know, Elmwood is a key street, but we expect that a substantial amount of the traffic that's on Elmwood is probably coming to Lifescape, and having that parking lot facilitate that should somewhat mitigate or offset some of that traffic.
And if I could, one other thing, it's not directly on point to the vacation, but it's in your department. There was some discussion about somebody proposing to do no parking on one side of one of the roads. Were you familiar with that?
Yes, and so
that was that?
Over time, if I can just zoom in a little bit, I don't have a pointer, but it just at the bottom side of the yellow line, that is 28th Street. So 26th is flanked on the north side of Lifescape, 28th is on the south side. We've worked with those property owners on 28th Street to evaluate different requests over time to actually eliminate on-street parking. One of the things that gets to be difficult in this area is with the balance of the neighborhood and this employer. When we go into street snow removal, street sweeping, some of those avenues that with the amount of on-street parking that's happening, they have concerns either with access, site, building these additional spaces should help in a positive way to alleviate some of those concerns.
Okay.
Councilor Erickson.
Mark, can you, I know we've done this before, but refresh my memory, walk me through the process of a street vacation fast. My question is, there's no funds that the city receives for this land, is that correct?
No, and I would probably take you back to just envision, and you will see it over time, that as you annex a piece of bare land, just imagine a 10-acre parcel that is just ag land, then it gets zoned, then the property owner then starts to subdivide, and part of that subdivision starts to set aside public right-of-way, so those future owners actually have access to those lots. So all this land at one time started out as private property, and then once that's now dedicated for the public's use, the city or governing body takes over the maintenance of that. This essentially is reversing that. There's a state law process that you go through with setting a date of hearing and ultimately having 100% frontage participation and then engaging to look at the pros and cons, and then we bring it to you and we'll provide our perspective of it, and in most cases we will share if we support it or not. Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can we charge for it? I mean, they're getting a lot of land for this.
Well,
Can the city charge for that or not? I'm not saying I'm advocating for it one way or another, but I'm just asking.
Right.
That's a fairly lengthy chunk of property.
Right. Well, I think that's, essentially what we'll still reserve is there's still public utilities and private utilities under there, so there'll still be a public purpose and an easement. But remember from the very beginning, at one time it was owned by a private property owner that owned that whole area. Now there's one property owner that owns both sides, and there's a state law provision that can vacate public right-of-way, and this would be that process. So I don't believe you could charge for that, since there's a state law provision on how you go about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Staley.
What would happen if we didn't vacate that street? They're still going to have parking on where those homes were, correct?
Well, I would think Counselor, would significantly limit the amount of parking spaces that they could create.
So they're going to take that street and have that all be a parking lot?
Yes, so let me advance. So imagine those lots that are numbered 1 through 8.
Right.
And the yellow brought together to create this subdivision plan. And I apologize that that's turned 90 degrees. But that land essentially encapsulates the previous, or the today's public right-of-way and the lots that those houses are on. Do you have anything else to help visualize that? There we go.
That's the street right there.
That's the current street of Elmwood. And then you'll see those lots. We point to the lots that it's backing up to.
But they could have, I mean, they could have parking lots without the street being vacated.
I think that would be a good question probably for Jason with the minimum setbacks. You would, I think, significantly diminish the ability to develop a functioning parking lot. Is that fair?
Depending on if the rezoning's approved, they could still construct a parking lot on those properties. Essentially, you'd probably lose that first 2 rows between the 2 trees that are sitting there. So you would go from 150 down to, I don't know, 50, so.
Well, I'm just looking at Elmwood and these people's ability to go north to 26th Street. They're going to be losing their access point.
There's still going to be an access point on 28th Street. We're just moving it over, or they're just moving it over to the west. You'll still have that little drive that comes to the west, so it won't give people a straight shot from 26th to 28th, which seems to help in some instances with people speeding and trying to get across things. I think the majority of the people that utilize Elmwood now are people utilizing Lifescape.
Yeah, and that, again, is going to make it really beneficial to hear from these people as to what they think the ramifications are going to be moving forward.
Other questions for Mark? If not, can I look for a motion with that revised date?
Mayor. I'll move to set a date of hearing for Tuesday, July 17th at 7 p.m. for item 114. Nitzert.
Second.
Okay, that's seconded by, motion by Nitzert, seconded by Councilor Sale. Councilor Kiley, did you have
no
additional comments? Any further discussion on this? If not, vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Next item, please. A motion to provide advice and consent for the appointment of the following administrative officers: Matt Burns as Police Chief, Mike Cooper as Director of Planning and Building Services, Mark Cotter as Director of Public Works, Jody Fick as Director of Siouxland Libraries, Jill Franken as Director of Public Health, Brad Goodroad as Fire Chief, Don Kearney as Director of Parks and Recreation, Bill O'Toole as Director of Human Resources, and Sue Kwan-Beck-Etten as Director of Central Services.
Hey, Bill.
Mayor, City Council, Bill O'Toole from the Human Resources Office. The reason this matters before you tonight is because of 2 provisions that I'd like to highlight real quickly for you and for those that may be watching from home, is that all appointive officers with the City of Sioux Falls expire when the term of the mayor expires in the personnel regulations, and pursuant to city charter, any department head, that appointment is not concluded until advice and consent of council is obtained. And that's why we're here for you tonight. The executive orders that make those appointments are available, and the mayor has made those appointments. We're now looking for your support for the advice and consent. Myself and my 8 colleagues are here tonight should you have any questions about the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Questions for Bill and council? If not, look for a motion. Do you have a question, Councilor Knight?
I just have a comment. I just can't resist. You did have to sit here until 9:30, but I think unequivocally you are paid, so you'll probably get over it. So I am going to make a motion to approve, thanking them for their service.
I second that motion.
Motion approved by Knights or seconded by Kiley. Any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
See you tomorrow, Bill. Past 8-0.
I'm almost done.
Next item, please.
A motion advising and giving consent for the number and order of proposed interim mayor successor designees.
Again, Bill O'Toole from Human Resources. Another item in terms of an executive order that expires with the mayor's term, that the charter articulates that in terms of a disaster or emergency, as defined by South Dakota codified law, and due to the unavailability or temporary disability of the mayor, he is required to identify interim mayor successors. That executive order is before you, and it lists the chief of staff, number 1, the director of public works is number 2, the director of human resources is number 3, public health director number 4, and director of planning and building services as number 5. And pursuant to the charter, it requires that the number and order of that designation is subject to the council's advice of consent as well. I consider this a continuity of operations issue. It doesn't have anything to do with council members. You all designate a replacement for the mayor for the council. This just has to do the administrative side. Encourage your support as well.
Councilor Neitzer. Just out of curiosity, does this have any bearing if the mayor just goes on vacation for a week, or does this only cover the things in which you're listed?
It only covers as it's enumerated here. There's actually another executive order that authorizes the signature of documents to maintain operations as well.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Bill? Can I have a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Sale. Any further discussion? If not, vote please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is pass 8-0. Any other business from the council? If not, I'd ask for a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Move to adjourn. Councilor Kylie, seconded by Sale. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great night.